Hey friends, Christine here. Glad you're here, and I hope you've been following along with this this curved spine journal. Mine happens to be a bread journal, and we still have a lot to do, but we're almost finished. And I want today to concentrate on embellishing the cover in the small ways I plan to, but to talk with you about a couple of things you might do for your own cover. And then we want to get the signature block in, and then the end papers, and finish it up. So I'm doing a few things that I don't normally do with this kind of journal, so it's going to be a little bit of an adventure, and I'm glad you're here, and hopefully it'll all go smoothly, and I'll wind up with this beautiful book. So a couple of things before we start. So this we don't need yet. Let me move this aside. Okay, and you have to forgive me, I've got a bit of a runny nose today, so I may be sniffly. So what we want to do is add our embellishments. Now that would include any book plate you might want to put on. I mean, maybe you didn't do the embossed cover and you just wanted the curved spine, and you have a flat cover and you want to put a book plate, or you want a title plate, or you want to put it down here, or you want something decorative. It could be so many things. The other thing is, this is the point at which you would also, if you're going to do a ribbon, like this closure, okay, you'd want to do that now. And I'm not doing that. You can see it's under here. I will show you how to do it, but I'm not doing this. And let me just get that aside. Okay, so if you're wanting to do a ribbon closure or a sari silk or a seam bias tape, then you do it now. And all you have to do, again, I'm not doing it, I have a different idea for this book, a new and fun idea, is you would just simply glue it in right now. And it would be, find the center where you want to put it. It should be fairly even. And decide how long you want the danglies to be. You can always trim them later, so I always give a little extra and then trim after I make the bow. But then, so you just simply glue, put down your ribbon, press it in, let it go into the curve of the spine, and then let that dry. And then later, after we put in our signature block, we'll then cover that up. Now, something I normally do if I'm doing this kind of closure on this kind of journal is I do run a piece of artist tape right here. Let me show you, just so you see it. So if I were doing this type of closure, I would have glued it in, and then I would take a small piece of any kind of artist tape, masking tape. I like this one because it's a little thicker than masking tape. You could even use duct tape, but that's a little overkill. And then I would just stick it right about there, so that it would help this it would help this ribbon, once it is in, to not pull on the paper as you muck with it. Then this would all be just anchored down a little bit. It's just something I've gotten into the habit of doing. There goes my end paper. Did you see that? Isn't that pretty? This is going to be so cute. I'm so happy with this. There goes another piece of paper. So anyway, that's what you would do at this point if you were doing this type of closure. So like I said, you'd also do your book plates, because you would poke holes. I show how to do this on 2 different videos. So you've seen me do this before. So basically it's the little brads that are holding this in are then hidden under the end paper, and then in this case it's hidden under the the envelope, and here, somewhere under here, there are hidden brads that are holding this in. So again, this is the point at which you want to do that. I'm not doing that either. So one thing I am doing is I am using, remember that I did a little walkthrough of that tag sale I went to, that estate sale, and I wound up with these really cool number things. So what these actually are, what do you call it? Things you would use to bang into your storm windows, so you knew which window it was. Like, we have storm windows in our old house that come off, and so you'd want to know which window it was, so you would just bang these into them somewhere discreet. Well, I took one. Here's the dirty ones I bought. Why aren't we? It doesn't want to focus. My camera's being weird. Anyway, I cleaned one up, so it's a little shinier. And then these really didn't need a lot of cleaning up, but I did clean it up a little. And I'm going to use this 15, and I'm just going to put it there as though this is a journal in a series of bread journals. So to do that, I'm going to, what I've done, because these are a little bit long, like if I pull these out, now watch, I'm not going to be able to get one out. Let me use the letter opener. There we go. These are pretty long. Oh, this one's even broken already. That one's not as long. The other ones had sharp. There we go. This is how long it was when I started with it. So that is too long. You always want to measure and see how that is way too long for the book. So all I did with my little 15 is went in with a wire cutter and just clipped it, and it popped right off. So now I know that it is a length that won't poke through my book. That's the whole point of this. Okay, so get rid of that. So now I need to get my awl. I've got two awls handy, and one is really thick, and I think this is more like a leather working tool, and so I'm going to stay with the skinnier of the two. I'm simply going to eyeball where I want it. Originally I was going to put a dangle here, one of these guys, and here too this would be the time to do that if you wanted to have a pull loop. But I want this little number. So I'm just going to eyeball it and poke. That looks close enough. So now I've gone through. Now remember, this spine is only cardboard. So record albums to be precise. So I'm going to see, that looks big enough. Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, I can push it through there. Okay, so then the other thing I'm going to do, because this won't stay on its own, is I'm going to encourage it with a little of my favorite paste here. And I don't have a little brush. Let me get one. Okay, I'm just going to use a cotton swab. So this is Tim Holtz Distress Collage Medium in matte. It doesn't matter what color it is or what finish it is. But this is what I use when I want to glue a couple of weird things together and be sure that they stick. So if it were a little bigger, I would just dump it, dip it in there. So now I'm going to put just enough so that it should stick both to the hole and the cover itself. All right, so now I'm going to stick it in and push. Support the spine some. There we go. All right, that's not going anywhere. And we can see it hardly comes up. There's nothing for it to catch on the inside. And now I have that cute little thing. And I think, other than perhaps maybe I will add some labels or something later, but I really just want it very, very simple. So that's going to take a while to dry, but we can move on. All right, so let me just see that I'm going to clip this. I just noticed this little thread. Okay, so now what's next? So next we're going to, because that's all the embellishment I'm doing for this journal, my closure is going to be done after the fact. Then we could go ahead and put in our book block. So again, I mentioned that I'm going to do something a little bit different. So in my first journal like this, when I put my book block in, you can see it's not glued to the spine. There's a hollow spine and it's not glued to it. Okay. In this journal, similar, I did glue it to the spine. I have it dropping all the way back in. So this book, we're doing sort of a hybrid combination. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put book bands on my spine here. So hold on one second. I'm going to use these and some scrap paper to help my book stand up so I can work on it this way. So I don't want to put the clamps on my actual book because they might leave marks that distress me. So I'm going to just do this. Like so. And this is just, I hope, just going to make things easier for me to glue these little bands on. Okay. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so now I want to put just one here. So I'm just going to line it up right to the top and glue it on. Just to the edge. I'm not going beyond the actual spine. I'm just going to cut this. I might trim it again once I have it here. You're going to see my head for a second. That looks good. Okay. So now just a little Fabri-Tac up here. This will cover this little part. Oh, this is all going to get covered anyway. Now, take it right up to there. All right. I'm going to let that dry just for a few minutes. And I'm not going to do it at the foot of the book. It's unnecessary. All right. So now, while that's drying, what I want to do next is I want to create a mechanism through which this can still be a hollow spine and yet I can have my signatures glued to it. So I'm going to first cut this off now. So that's the other thing. Once your book is done, like this cover's been done for quite a while now. If there are things that are just like popping up because of either how they were glued or painted, essentially you could just go in and cut them off like these. So you see these like little things sticking up? They're unnecessary. We could just take them down and cut them off, which I just did. Okay. Now what we're doing for this hybrid version of the of this binding is I have a piece of paper bag. It's just regular old plain paper bag, and I'm going to cut it. I want to make sure that it is at least the height of my spine of my book, and it is. I don't need that. Make that into something else. And I'm just going to use this paper. Okay. So let me just put it like this. Now I like this paper because it's rugged. It's a bag, but it's also flexible. Originally I was going to use this paper, which is craft paper too, but it's a little more thick. This one's a little bit more pliable. And that one, either would work. I'm just choosing this one because I'm choosing this one. So now I need to measure my spine. Oh, I just remembered. I wanted to put some scrungy cheesecloth popping out of here too. I should do that now. So I'm gonna just double it up a little bit. could be kind of wonky. Again, just to give it that frayed, sort of aged feel that we love. That's probably good right there. So I'm going to pick up the book now and see how high up is that coming. That'll be just great. So now a little more fabric glue here. And you can send it wherever it's going. Doesn't have to be too far up to the top. I'm gonna put this on and just glue it in. Let's take this off now. I just wanted to be able to see my spine. All right, so yeah, so pressing it down so that all the layers wind up stuck. And then I'm going to trim it because I put on a piece that's way too big than it needed to be. And then try and flatten it a little bit and even trim it down here. Do not try this at home and cut your sewing threads, but that's good. That'll be fine. All right, yeah, just a little bit of, you know, that. All right, so now I am going to measure mine. Now in my other book, I have it coming off the top and bottom. I might do that here too. In fact, I am going to. So where's that piece I just cut off? Of course, the bottom will be less seen. So, oops, that's why I use those clamps. I'm going to just take this and add it to the bottom. The glue, this little piece, again, just adding it there for a little detail. Okay. Next we actually do the measuring I've been talking about for the last 2 minutes. All right, so now I want to know how wide is my spine of the actual book block. And it appears to be 1 5/8 is this part. Let's see how big the actual spine is. 1 1/2. So I'm going to go with the 1 1/2 because I want it to lay right in here. So I'm going to take my paper, move these for a second. Take my paper, and I want a piece of paper that is the height of my spine, of the book spine. So forget the fringy stuff. And we are 8 3/8 is what I would go. That's like an 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch smaller than the actual spine. So I want this to be 8 3/8 tall. And 1 1/2 times a few. So let me just trim this down to 8 3/8 and we'll go from there. Okay. Get rid of that. Clean that up. My paper cutter is my paper cutter. So this I have now is 8 3/8 tall. I'm just going to double check that. Very good. And currently is 6 1/2. Fine. What I want it to be is 1 1/2 inches folded over. So I'm going to start here. Going to mark that at 1 1/2 inches. It's going to be here. Okay, and 1 1/2 inches here. I'm going to fold that over. Okay. I'm going to fold that over again. I'm going to fold it over once more. But then I'm going to take my knife and take that last flap off. Yeah, I'm trimming it to there basically. I'll do it with scissors, make life simpler for you to see. Cut that. There we go. So now essentially I've created this tube. And this is what's going to help us keep my book connected to the spine and not be connected to the spine so that it can open flat. Okay, so it's going to come in here. You'll see in a second. What we do need to do first is glue this together so that it's actually a tube. So today was recycling day. I don't have much scrap paper around. You should see all the boxes of cheeses I got rid of. It's like, I'm going to come up with a project. I need this, but I can't keep everything. All right. So now let's just get glue on this side. Okay. Remove the paper and fold this down. So when you do this, you do want to be sure that you still have a tube, okay? And I do. And now I'm going to ooze all the glue out and make sure again that I still have a tube because you know how I am with glue, but I do. I have a beautiful tube, a wonderful tube. Now for this part, this again, we want our book back. So here, see that. And what we're going to do now is actually glue this right to our spine. Now you can use PVA glue, you can use Fabrifix, Fabri-Tac. I think that's what I'm going to use. Again, the only important thing is that it still is a tube. All right. Now, this will also help protect all these threads. Now, some of these threads are longer than they need to be even still. Get rid of them because they're about to get all glued to a piece of paper anyway. So here, you want to be pretty generous with the glue. Definitely, I would go across the stitches, go on top of the cheesecloth. Of course, now I'm running out of glue. I do have more, it's just not open. And you want to be really, really generous with this glue. You want it to stick. You don't want it coming apart. Again, PVA glue would work just as well. Don't be shy. All right, I think that's enough. Again, you want it quite solidly attached. Okay, so now I'm going to line this up somewhere near the top and somewhere near the bottom. That's why you kind of make it just a scant bit shorter. And now is the messy part because we want to keep it connected, and it's going to shift around a little because that's fabric glue for you. And you want to make sure that it's sticking. Now I have glue all over my hand, so give me a second. I'll be right back. All right, so I should also mention that this is also entirely unnecessary. This is just how I want to do this book. You could, and I'll show you when we're gluing it in, simply glue it in. If you were doing that, I would put a strip of dark paper across here anyway. Just glue it, plain old cheapo scrap paper. Pick something you don't like, but something that's kind of dark. Because if you're not gluing to the spine, like I did in the little book, there's a chance you would see down into the hollow. Let me put this down for a second. And again, checking every so often that you still have a tube here. And I do. But we really need this to be dried and stuck. So I'm actually going to open it up, make sure it's going to stick the way we want it to. Okay, so while that has a second to dry, what I'm talking about, if you choose not to add this tube, if you look in here, let me open it up. When it opens, oh, my stuff's falling out. When it opens, you can see in here. So here you can see I just have a darker piece of paper. It looks fine. In fact, it's probably like a scrap of that paper. And in the other one, in the smaller book, it is not an issue because I have glued it actually to the spine. The actual fabric is glued to the spine. So let's see how we're doing here. Okay, it's looking pretty good. But again, it's imperative that you keep that hollow tube. It's all good. Stick this down here. As I said, you want to make sure that this is hollow. All right, so let's, again, let this dry for a few, just to make sure we're not rushing it, because I never give the glue time enough to dry. I'm always in a hurry, hence the patience journal. So let's let that sit, and I'll be back. Alrighty, so it's had some time now. It still feels cold though. And you know how with fabric glues you can tell if it's dry by its temperature, and this still feels a little bit cold. So I am going to, if you'll permit me, let it sit a little longer. Look how wrinkled my little shirt's getting. Yeah, so I'm going to give a few more minutes. Okay, that's had now several minutes. It should be good and dry. So now comes the exciting part, putting the book into your book. So here's my book. Very simple. Simple, simple, simple. Move that out of the way. So let's do a little test fit here and see how things are looking. I think that's looking pretty good, I'd say. See? I bent a page. Okay, so now, if you were going to, I'm going to open this up. I don't know why this fabric is curling the way it is, but I might just go hit it with the iron. But you can see there is my book in place. Lovely, lovely. Now I think I mentioned before, I left a lot of room for adding things. So my book is not full, because I have a lot of things I know I'm going to add in here, like recipes and things. So this guy, unfortunately, did take a hit in the last section. So now we want to glue our spine in and our fabric in. Now, again, if you were not doing the hollow, you could just glue your pages in. You know, you would put just a strip of paper back here and then glue that to the spine of the cover. I did it this way because I've been wanting to try this. So now what I'm doing is looking at the book for top to bottom positioning and making sure that when I go to glue it in, that it is going to be reasonably centered. And that can always be a little fudged when you actually get the glue in. Okay, so now it's just really just gluing it in. So I do want to take a look at this though, and I don't know why this back one particularly is rolling up like this. So I am going to go hit this with an iron just to keep it flat. It's going to make my life easier in the end. Okay, so that's a little better. So now, get all this out of the way. I don't need any more of those embellishments. I'm not using them. So now we're going to glue the spine in first. And that will be A number 1. And I have prepared a new glue, so it's not as infuriating as, oh, look at that. So here too, we want a fairly generous amount of glue, but we're just doing the spine. Alright, that should be plenty, but we do want it up around the edges. Now some of it's going to ooze out because I've been exceedingly generous with the glue here. In fact, I might take a scrap of paper and just spread it a little bit myself. Just so it's all the way along the edge. There we go. Okay, but remembering we do not want to glue this closed, so we always have to keep checking that this is not glued closed, which that might be. Now that I just looked at that. So I need my little widget here to make sure that that is still open, and it is. And that this side is still open. And it also is. Alright, so now keep being certain that your signature block is face up and is going into your book, and you're just going to lay it in what feels like the top and bottom. In terms of the height of the book. Okay, so now I'm just going to press it right in there. And once it's in, you want to make sure, there too, so I have a little, sorry about the head, just want to make sure that it isn't glued closed, especially at the top and bottom where it's most likely to do that. Okay. Push it in. See what I'm doing? Just pushing it straight in to that spine. I'm going to flip it. Check my tunnel, my hollow, and just make sure it's still open. And now push right into the spine. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Once you've done that, you're going to come in between your signatures and with your bone folder, just go through each area and burnish it down. Okay. Yep, that's not the right spot. There we go. And again, you want to pull it out a little bit. Make sure you're not gluing this closed. Sorry, my head, I know. Yeah, I was a little too generous with the glue at the top and bottom. So I just have to keep making sure it's open until the glue dries. Okay. So now as it opens, it's only, again, top and bottom. Everything else should be just fine. So I'm going to stick a piece of paper in there. Okay, so take some wax paper and stick it right in there. And that's going to help me keep it open. Check the bottom. I also complicated things by having the cheesecloth there. So that's okay. So now we're going to pull it a little bit. That's exactly what we want to happen. We want the back to stay and the pages to move just a little bit. So as it opens, see that? Perfect. I might as well stick a little piece in there too, just to catch any glue while it dries. Here, I want to make sure that the pages can move and the hollow stays hollow, like so. See that? Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to use a ruler to make sure it goes all the way through, and it does. Again, unnecessary. I just wanted to do it for this book. And now we just let it dry as it wants to. Should be fine and good. When this pulls open after it's all glued in, we'll always be able to have this book lay flat. Perfect. Okay, now we do want to glue each of these pieces of fabric down. So for that, we're just going to kind of line it up and see where it's going to fall and put some glue there. I do want to get a little right in this edge there, just a little. Now, and just like before, the glue is going to go through the fabric a little bit. It is not a problem. It all gets covered. Okay, so I'm going to grab my wax paper. And let that do its thing. So we do definitely want a piece of scrap paper in here, wax paper or otherwise. Not that one because it's soiled, but you can see the glue is going through. So let's get another piece. And we're going to put it right in here so that we can close that. Now we do the other side. Same thing. Let's kind of just see where it's going to fall. This one's going to fall closer to the edge. Something right along the edge, top and bottom, but we can always re-glue any spots. Okay, so now pick it up, gonna let it fall exactly where it wants. Go up. Some of this I'm going to trim off. All these little threads here. Okay, into each side. Come here a little bit. Glue. It's all got to get glued down again with the end paper, so it's fine, fine, fine. Okay, so this is where the puckering is going to be, if there's going to be puckering. So we want to get that piece of protective paper in here, and let's see it go in. Looks good. Let's watch this. Yeah, this is where it's going to pucker. It does pucker along this seam sometimes, so we want to encourage it to pucker in the way we want, which is hardly at all. There we go. Oops, we don't want to do that without that. Okay, things are looking good. Let's see if the back puckered. Doesn't look like it did. Fresh piece of paper in here. A little bit. So you want to make sure you do have glue on that, in that little fold area, in the hinge. Okay. Now we let this dry, and make sure that it's covered while it does. Okay, so here, I'm going to move this up a little. The fabric is a little long on this end. I'm going to put the book this way. Just come here. My fabric stretched a little as I glued it. These are not my adhesive scissors. Oh well, I guess they are now. So I'm just going to trim it there. Better. Move the glue. Still a little wet. So let's put our paper back in and give it some alone time so that it can, in fact, dry. It'll take just a couple of minutes. All right, let's give it those minutes. All right, let's take a look. Looks pretty good, feels pretty dry, although not entirely. So we keep this in here. Look at the back. Looks a little messy, but there too, that is not completely dry. So let's give it more time. but in general, we are looking very good. I'm quite pleased. Pull out some of my spongy stuff here. And see what happens now when we open the, there we go. A beautiful hollow. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Perfect. So the beauty of this hollow method of using the tube is that you protect your stitches, you make it dark automatically, you keep the book block attached to the spine, and yet when you open it, it has the flexibility of opening flat. So, like so. So you can keep your book open flat, which is beautiful. And again, the bottom looks great. So I'm really happy that we did that. And now it's just letting this glue dry. So it's pretty dry. All we need to do, except for the enclosure, which is another experiment in journaling, is put in our end papers. So I want to mark here the size end paper I want, which is going to go right to this edge. So I'm thinking about there, and then about here. So let me go to the paper cutter and trim this up, and then I'll do the same for the back. So I've made my trim. I'll keep this because it's coordinated, and I might want to make some ephemera with it later. Now here's where too, if you wanted to ink, you'd ink now. I'm not going to ink. I have a feeling that as a bread journal, this book is going to get skeevy on its own. So I'm not going to ink it. I'm just going to glue it. And that will help me not have to worry about this messy glue anymore. So it's actually just as easy if I put the glue on here. Get it out by the edges. Okay, and then we figure out which is the top and bottom, and it is this, and we just lay it in to the book. Making sure that it's not in the gutter or the hinge area. Good. And then you can see, of course, some of it is going to ooze out, so you want to be careful. And watch your glue. And for this, I'm using scrapbook paper that's a little heavier. It's not super cardstock, but it's not paper either. Two. And now the back, which I have to decide on my size. So let's say there. I probably could have just trimmed these to the same size, but it's nice to know you're being exact with this part, and you don't want to be in the hinge, so you do have to be careful. So I'm going to say maybe to there and there. Okay, I'll be right back. All right, let's do a test fit. And actually it seems a little long, like it might. Yeah, I'm going to take a little slice off this. It seems like it might intrude a little bit on the hinge. little bit. All right. Try that and that. Yeah, I think that's better. It's equally a tad long, I think, on the bottom. So, just the smallest amount. Better. Okay. Let's get this baby in. All right, that should be adequate. And there. There. Make sure it's not in the hinge. Glue on there. We will erase with our magic eraser. Perfect. All right, kids. There we are. One completed curved spine, Oxford hollow. As you can see here. Let me move these so you can see it. Oxford hollow spine, or it could be just regular, it's up to you. Now the interesting part's going to come for this closure I have in mind for this. I've designed this little idea, and I hope it's going to work, because it means putting a hole in my book. So you can see, I'll talk about this in a second, but I left a little extra room because I'm trying this new thing. So go create, be awesome, go finish up your journals, and then I'll show you my closure idea in the next video.